So, I'm here to talk to you about the brand new conference and also a bit of a summary of what we've done today, because with each year, hopefully you will see how we are closer to a total design package. You will see how our creative ID has grown from year 1 to year 10, which is coming up in Vegas. But I will start with a warning. 10 years in 20 minutes. So bear with me, I'm going to speak fast. If you cannot keep up, just wave, and I'll slow down and not do a Q&A. Second, I need to give you a bit of context. In 2009, the economy was going through a shift, if you may. And we had moved from New York to Austin, and pretty much all of our client work dried up, and we had 2 mortgages, and realized we better do something. And we decided to take advantage of the fact that we had the brand new blog where we cover branding designs over and over every single day. We have about 6,000 posts by now over the last 12 years. And so a great community there that could support us as we moved forward. And third, the great wisdom of the internet that provides us with all of the wonderful learnings that I am going to go over today. Especially Pinterest, because whenever we go to Pinterest, we're looking for inspiration, and we must always start somewhere. And Pinterest also tells us that we should take the risk. Now, risk is something that I'm very passionate about. As I said, we had 2 mortgages, no client work, and a lot of free time on our hands. So we decided to start the brand new conference, obviously using Eventbrite in order to sell the tickets at that point. Now, one thing that's really important about Eventbrite is that they won't give you the funds of all of the tickets until the day after the event. Now, that is wonderful for you because it means I am going to show up. It is not so wonderful when you're maxing out every single credit card, savings account, and everything, because setting up a conference for 500 people in New York City is not cheap. So my advice to you is, if you're conscious about this, go ahead and max out all the credit cards. Totally fine. Great business decision. And advice. Now, we are branding for branding designers, so we can, push the boundaries of legibility a little bit and be a little cheeky. This is our first run at trying to create all of these materials, so this tote is brand new, just for you. So is the t-shirt, and a little Scout Bugs program. And one thing that we set out to do from the very beginning was all of the programs and all of the materials we want you to keep. I don't want to find stuff in the trash at the end of the day in the venue, or in the hotel, or anywhere else. So the program becomes this collectible book in a way. So instead of just giving you the schedule and very basic information, we provide case studies of our sponsors and kind of like a portfolio for every single speaker. So the very first event sold out in 3 weeks. We thought, we're going to nail this. This is amazing. And we had a blast creating all of these materials, although it was a little bit stressful. It's like buying a house and planning a wedding without the benefits of a honeymoon after that. But everything is going to be okay in the end, because risk really pays off, especially when it is calculated risk. We knew going to New York City as our first city was safe. We had lots of friends who would come in and support us. And it is important to ignore everyone who says you're crazy. Why? Because you're making them uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable and you're okay with your level of uncomfortable, just forget whatever they have to say. So, what do you do when you're successful at something? You pick up your ponytail, you try again. And that's when we came here to San Francisco. Now, this was a great learning experience, especially when it comes to unions. But I'll digress and not go over there. We hired a sign painter that need all of these wonderful type treatments for the cost of all of the items for the materials. And we also use translucent paper to emulate the windows of the market and that kind of thing. So again, we're trying to test the boundaries a little bit. And the event was successful. We didn't feel like on top of the world like we did the first year, because we had some technical issues and problems in the logistical background that had us facing our doubts. Just because it worked once doesn't mean it's going to work again. And you have to learn to ignore those naysayers, but it's really hard. And when you question your own worth, you have to work harder to prove yourself wrong and everybody else wrong. Because things will, in the end, work out again. Because you're putting in the hours, you're putting in the effort, the energy, and you're doing your own thing. So you can see Pinterest is very varied. The next year, we went back to New York and decided to nitpick famous logos, like the Apple logo, and just take the little leaf and create a pattern. And with this, we created like a quilt of sorts with all of the different brands. And so it was a bit of an exercise for everybody to try and find what part of a logo they had, in each letter. Is it the arrow of the FedEx logo, that kind of thing. For the materials, we went a little oversized. We learned, okay, an oversized program that's 11 by 17 is not so practical in the little theater, but it's beautiful. It's stitched. It has foil stamp. So you start to learn things as you go along. We went back to a venue that we had used, so that ran a little smoother. And we started to grow in a way. Designing for designers is as dangerous as it sounds. You are all a very opinionated group. But it is as rewarding as you can imagine. If you can make a designer smile and hold his materials and take them home and photograph them, you've succeeded. You need to feed yourself from their feedback, but not necessarily their opinions, because we all like to overthink things and take things very personally. But at the same time, if you don't venture a little bit outside of your comfort zone, you're not going to gain things. So as we move on, we had another event in New York, and this is a year where we kind of started to take things into our own hands, literally. We made our first set of badges that had no custom part to them. These were all ribbons that I cut by hand. We had these special lasered acrylics. And for the program, we had black paper that was die cut with tiny little pinholes so that the logo would move around, and there was 800 of these, and each individual cover was different by the power of embroidery. So I embroidered every single cover, 6 different logos, and this is the year I discovered Mumford & Sons. Mumford & Sons has the perfect tempo for any production group job. So I would just put my kids to sleep, put on my headphones, and be like, all right, this is the logo I'm embroidering today. I wanted white paper bags with yellow handles. Now, nobody has white paper bags with yellow handles. So I introduced a brand new conference to all of my neighbors. From that point forward, I had people who would walk by and like, oh, conference season again. Do you want to send your kids over? Do I need to send pizzas tonight? And actually, they did. Every now and then, they would send pizza. We started to approach that total design a little bit further. It's the first time we had a branded podium, because we realized the power of social media and people posting pictures of all our speakers with wonderful quotes, but all of a sudden now it's branded. So we start to go a little bit deeper each year and trying to stay focused and not digressing into too much of how far you can take it, but bringing our own level of magic to each year. So getting your hands dirty is definitely worth it. And people will start asking months in advance, like now, I'll be hosting one day, and that day I'm already being asked, what is it that you're going to do next year? And best of all, you get to learn new skills along the way. I had not embroidered anything before that year in my life. So if something is scary, don't worry, you should do it anyway. The main thing is you do not panic about it. The moment you panic, your quality decreases. We went to Chicago the following year, and this was a big transition because we went from a one-day conference to a two-day conference. Now, that basically duplicates your efforts, your expenses, everything, but we kept the same ticket price. We figured, okay, we'll go to a bigger venue, maybe we'll just get more people, and it will all work out, and it did. And it's also the first year we decided to brand based on location. So we took all of the references that we had regarding Chicago, everything from winter sweaters to Chicago, the typeface and Garris work, and created the branding for it. Now, the sticker on the program moves, and we had the volunteers the day before the conference label all of these so that they move like the stock market, and it always matches with the logo. And the badges became a 7-layer production where my kids have started to learn all about how to brand birthday parties. Because I will be working on the kitchen counter, making all of these things, and sometimes they help, and sometimes they stare, and sometimes they're like, movie night, please. And so it is. So here we are, now branding the stage. That was another big thing that year, because it's a very large stage. So we made 2 acrylic letters that were about 2 feet high, 2014 brand new conference. So that filled out the space nicely, and it became this item that people wanted to take home. And so we had this little giveaway at the end, and it has become a yearly thing. Who gets to take the letters? So the fear of failure is a great motivator. Nobody likes to fail. And the fear of disappointing others, at least for me, is even greater. So it's important to let your fear drive you forward with a clarity that you will not derail. Because you should always know, again, if you're putting in all the work, the hours, the energy, good things are always coming. Back in New York, we decided to base our branding on the street graffiti that we're all familiar with, along with that 1% opulence that is also so native to New York. Now, a sane designer, which I'm hoping some of you are in here, would create a stencil, spray paint it, scan it, put it into the file, send it to the printer. Not me, not my husband, my biggest collaborator. I created this drying rack out of tulle and wood so that I could dry all of the single covers that we spray painted again in our backyard. In July, in Texas, and every single cover had to have not only the spray paint, but also Tresemme hairspray and wood spray so that the letterpress would actually adhere properly. No other kind of spray paint, hairspray. We went through just a few cans of spray paint, and you learn very quickly that you can't spray paint for 8 or 12 hours a day unless you start to use both your hands. It's important that no matter what, you do not give up. Same with the badges. They were made out of wood, spray painted and everything. And I sent out a few quotes from carpenters to cut them into small pieces because they were larger. The best price I got was $2,000. I'm like, $2,000 for cutting 1,000 little pieces of wood, like just straight lines? I'll go to Home Depot. $300 later, I have a big machine now I get to use every time I want. And I learned how to use it, and now I took matters into my own hands because my dream was achievable as long as I kept it in budget. Drawstring bags, also seen all over New York, right? So 2 challenges here. One was when I spray painted, I needed to create a different kind of rig so that the paint would not go from one side to the other, so they had to be slipped on a piece of cardboard that was cut out to size. So we did that for a few hours, and then a few more hours, and a couple more days. And the other thing is that they came with glossy, horrible cords. And so 2,000 cords out, and 2,000 pieces of paracord that I found that matched the colors. That is probably the most tedious and boring task I have ever done, but at least somebody enjoyed the process. She just kept climbing higher and higher and higher. Now, we were able to brand the venue itself with these beautiful lights above the stage, and I also spray painted every piece of linen with coffee, tea, registration, and so that was a little intense, and now I have a lot of tablecloths that we use for drop cloths all over the office. And it's also the first year that social media really exploded with the branding of the conference. People really took it upon themselves to take pictures of all of these materials and post them, and became our advertising. We've never advertised our conference outside of our blog. So all of a sudden, people are doing this and saying, hey guys, you should be jealous, you should be here, getting all these cool stuff, and enjoying the conference and the speakers. So, there's this thing that some people think is negative, but I think that going where nobody else has gone is the best kind of advertising. Your curious neighbors will become your biggest supporters. This is the year they start sending pizzas. And OCD is not the enemy. You need to embrace it, make it your own, and use it to your own advantage. Because, you're different. We went to Nashville the next year, testing our audience in the sense of will you travel for the conference a little bit outside of your comfort zone? And Nashville has great references to work with. That cannot be ignored. So we scoured Austin for old records that were not moldy. Some of them were, more than I care to admit, and found somebody who would silk screen on them. They figured it out. And then once they were silk screened, we had to cut them, drill them, do all of this. And we heard about trust earlier. And I can say, honestly, that if you, for 4 hours, jam a piece of record without looking and to get it drilled, you know you have absolute trust on that other person. All right. For the program, again, we developed these beautiful patterns that we wanted to use, but most of all, we wanted to bedazzle the programs. So, again, with the help of our volunteers the day before the conference, each cover had 7 rhinestones glued to it. And it became this tactile kind of surprise element that had people talking. And that's what I want, people talking. Some of them might not like it, others will love it, but as long as they're talking, I know I've done my job. For the stage, these are 4-foot letters that I painted over the course of 3 months after dinner, overflowing over our stove, basically. I pre-drilled little holes so that I would be able to put little LED Christmas lights to create that rhinestone effect. Went old school, transferring through chalk. And as I said, just spent hours and hours painting these. Now, we didn't have a lot of room, and I lived with those all around my bedroom for a good 2 months. So, you have to fully embrace the brand and be able to go to sleep looking at it, staring at you. The venue was a great help. It was the Nashville Symphony, so anything we did with that space was going to be beautiful and branded. So I think it pays to embrace a little bit of wonder in something that challenges your senses. A little pizzazz goes a long way as far as smiles go. And sometimes, sorry, Massimo, more is more, and you just have to own it. Now, life can be a little tough, but so are you, right? So we went back to Chicago. Cloudgate is right in front of our venue, perfect source of inspiration for our branding. The only problem we had at that point was that we were leaving Austin, moving somewhere. We didn't know where or when or how, but we knew we had this. So we figured we'll create materials that are a little less handmade because we didn't know what state we were going to be in, but based on the Cloudgate. So figuring out how to create that reflective material and that distortion out of the materials took a little bit, but then we found perfect logos that we wanted, had beautiful bags made, and then Classic Color out of Chicago printed our program. Not only is it reflective, but it reflects each other. So one side reads to one side, and then the other one is backwards. I have never used so many boxes of latex gloves as my volunteers did in preparing all of this, all the swag bags. But our biggest challenge was the badges. Now, the badges seem to be this thing that comes back to bite me every year. Mylar bags, about yay big. No silk screener will ever touch those. They're non-porous, so you need special ink. They move, they shift, they do all kinds of horrible things, but don't they look beautiful? I mean, and to carry that. So, you sensible designers that we are, sane, we ordered our DIY kit, silk screening kit, 3 weeks before the conference and decided to learn how to silk screen. We found a drying rack this time. Yes, I didn't have to build it. An hour away on Craigslist. Done. Set up our printing shop in the garage. Done. Learn how to silk screen. Sort of done. We did this, again, several hours. Had a big pile. Once they dried, we analyzed them. 70% of them were trash. Now, they say, when you're learning how to silk screen, don't start with duotones. Check. Don't start with non-porous materials. Check. All of these things. But, you can't sweat the small stuff. You just have to move forward. We did it again. We ordered 2,000 more bags and got all of our badges done. And once again, made our stage letters, and everything came together at the last minute, but it did. So, moving cross-country does not cut you any slack. Nobody cares. You just have to deliver. But the unknown fosters creativity. You figure it out. And learning new skills and getting new toys is a win-win situation. And it's always it seems impossible until it is actually done. Like driving back from Chicago, sitting in the car and saying, we're going back to New York next year. Yeah. Also known as a concrete jungle, right? Yeah. 3,000 pounds of raw concrete later, I learned how to make molds because I wanted a concrete program. That had never been done, and I wanted it. And when I want things, I get it. That means I have to work for it. That doesn't mean I just go online and buy it and be done. No, there's a lot of testing involved. And for about 6 months, wait, that one's not playing? All right. For about 6 months, you missed my favorite video, but it's not playing. 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, I sanded, poured, put concrete underwater, and I did all of these things in order to get my badges, my paperweights, and my programs ready. This is my outdoor station. Now you get really good at sanding really quickly, especially if you want to exfoliate your hand from time to time. Great suggestion, 80 grit will do the job. And then once it all is done and I've checked which ones work, we spent a few hours there sniffing vinyl glue in order to glue the covers onto the programs. So no matter what, my suggestion to you is keep moving forward. Because in the end, all of those imperfections and all of those details in that moody concrete that if it's cold, it gets blue, if it's humid, it gets splotchy. Turns out that I had over 1,000 beautiful, unique, all different programs. Also beautifully printed by Classic Color. But I also had 4 tons of materials that I could not trust or pay UPS or anybody else to take from Bloomington, Indiana to New York. So again, very sensible. 2 big vans, no seats, 15-hour drive to New York, but absolutely worth it. These were the little paperweights, and I've heard from people that they still have them, and it becomes a really good conversation starter on their desks. Knowing that the program was going to be a little bit cumbersome, we printed the schedule onto these concrete-looking bags. And curiously, this is the first year nobody said, "Can I take the letter?" And we're very busy running the show, and we didn't realize until the end, they didn't know they were made of foam. They would have loved those. So they ended up in the trash. But all of the badges, again, were handmade, and there's no seams or anything for the ribbon. Nobody complained really about the weight. I tried very hard to make them super thin. And once again, you see them posted on social media all over. So, in the end, I literally just make it up as I go. Because when you and everyone else around you thinks you cannot top whatever it is that you did the previous year, you can. You just have to think about it a little bit more, and you just have to be willing to embrace those blisters. You just take it one idea at a time, one task at a time. So, just to wrap it all up, branding the brand new conference, or pretty much anything, you have to start somewhere, and you have to note that you have to find that perfect formula of confidence and self-doubt, where you are fearless yet terrified, constantly pushing, listening, adjusting, and improving. But most of all, you always ask yourself, what if, and how can we? Thank you.